It wasn't the readings we expected from a holiday weekend. The market is showing some resilience. We have that covered and more in this week's report. As always, thanks for taking a few minutes to join us for our weekly market report, where we dive into our real-time insights into our local housing market. So let's get going. First up here, we start off today looking at national pending contract data again this week. We did last week as well. And last week we featured a chart that showed how 2023 activity was catching up with 2022 activity. This chart is a great illustration, with 0% being the baseline. Any reading below the dotted line is a market that's contracting year over year, and above is obviously expanding. So we are watching a trend of expansion here recently. So now a lot of that could be tied to interest rate volatility. Rates have settled in off of their 20-year highs in October. If you combine that with some seasonal inventory discounting that we're watching, we could just be experiencing a moment in time. But it's more likely the data is telling us that the market isn't necessarily heating up in any major way, but it's also likely not falling anymore anytime soon. Let's dive in now to our local data. New listings for the 4 counties we track. We had a very typical holiday seasonal pattern here with a contraction in new listings. But what was atypical here was the contract activity. We actually saw a small uptick in sales last week, which is unusual, but it does dovetail nicely with the national narrative we began with today. Here's our showing report, and this is a great leading signal because showings are active buyers, and those active buyers are going to become under contract buyers in the upcoming weeks and months. And you can see the holiday trough. What we will be watching more closely is to see if we get an exaggerated spike coming off the holidays versus previous years. Here's off-market activity. So these are sellers that took their home off the market without finding a buyer. This is another atypical holiday week reading. We usually see holidays be a marker for sellers to take their home that isn't selling off the market, but we actually had a substantial drop in this reading last week. And here's the balance metric. 60% here represents a fairly balanced market. Listing activity dipped, and then we watched contract activity move up. So we got a sharp acceleration away from a balanced market this week. And when you add in low off-market activity readings that we saw, we have a very similar pattern in the whole market, if you will. So to recap, contract activity is really resilient both nationally and locally, and the holiday weekend showed some atypical signals of market strength. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again here next week.